Okay, students, this video should be fairly short, but we're going to talk about building our database or building our application with our database already created. So if we already have a database created and we want to just import those entities using Entity Framework Core into our ASP.NET Core MVC application, we can do that via the command line again using a scaffolding command. So we can go here and I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder and call it database first, because that's what we're going to do, is create a database first migration. And again, from that folder, I'm going to right click and open the folder in a VS Code project. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a new terminal. And from that new terminal, I'm going to use the .NET CLI, .NET new MVC to create a basic MVC project for me to work from. So maybe this is your final project or something. You already have your database created, so you want to just scaffold out exactly how we're going to model that database from your, or model our entities from your already existing database. So the first thing we need to do is we're actually going to go ahead and again install all of those NuGet packages from the NuGet Package Manager console or from the .NET CLI. And since I'm using VS Code, I'm going to go ahead and use the .NET CLI, so I'll go ahead and say .NET add, and I want to add to my database first.cs proj, because that's the, I didn't mean to go that far back. So my database first.cs proj, because that's the project I'm working in, and I want to add the package for Microsoft.Entity Framework Core. I think I spelled everything correctly. It looks like I did. And let's go ahead and add the packages for the other two as well, for .tools and .SQL Server. And if I added them all correctly, I should be able to go into my csproj file, and they should all be here as package references now, and they are. So now I have my database that we created in the last video. I'm going to go ahead and close out this csproj file. And then while SQL Server is coming up, I want to go ahead and run .NET. Let's do --help. Let's go ahead and connect to my local DB and see that I have a database for my bookstore that still has all of my tables, authors, books, book genres. So I want to try to put all of those contexts and entities in my project without having to code them myself. So looking at the .NET help that I have, what I probably want to do is use that entity framework again. So I'm going to go ahead and say .NET EF help. And you see I have DB context. Maybe that's what I want to do to manage the DB context. So let's go ahead and say EF DB context help. And from there, I see something I can do with scaffold. Scaffold's the DB context and entity types for a database. So let's go ahead and say scaffold, and let's go ahead and do another help. See what I have there. And you see that I have a scaffold. Arguments, I can provide the connection and the provider. And then I can also provide all of these other options. So maybe I don't want all of my tables. Maybe I just want a few of the tables, so I can provide the table names here using --table, and then giving the table names as an argument. So maybe I only want just the genres or just the authors. And there's all other kinds of things we can do using this. I'm going to go ahead and skip all of the cool things we can do with it, and I'm just going to go ahead and create everything in my database. So since I need the connection, I'll go ahead and add in the connection string, and I want to go ahead and use Microsoft.Entity Framework. And I believe that's all. Core.SQL Server, sorry. Okay. So from there, now I need my connection string. So it's essentially just the connection string that's in your file, or in your app settings.json, so we can say server equals, And if you're getting it from maybe, say, Azure or something, you might need a URL. But since it's on our local machine, I'm going to say local DB, and I'm going to say /MSSQL local DB with a semicolon. I'm going to say the database equals bookstore and the trusted connection equals true. And I believe that should do it. Let's go ahead and run that. And there we go. So we can see that it magically created all of these files now that we had in the last project. So here's my authors file. Let's go and say yes. Here's my DB context file that had all of the information that I put in it as well. You see that it puts your connection string here. That isn't great. What I would do is I would put this database context in your startup.cs file and dependency inject it in rather than use this. I would get rid of this altogether. Really, you don't need this at all, this on configuring, because you're going to configure it within your startup.cs file. And then you have your on model creating again, just like we already had in the last one. All of your keys and your indexes and properties you have here. You can see that it has a lot more than we had before. Although it mainly has what we had before because it looks like it uses the Fluent API rather than attributes. So if you remember how we coded it, we coded attributes for things like name of our genre and author. There are no attributes here, but if you go to your database context, it is all there because you can see that we have entity.property of title. It is required and has a max length of 200. So you can see we have everything in here, but instead of using the attributes, the scaffolding command actually uses the Fluent API rather than the attributes like we did. So again, it's all via preference. If you'd prefer creating the database first, you can still get your code back out of it using the scaffolding command of the .NET CLI tool. Otherwise, if you do like working with the Fluent API inside of C#, it's easier to see relationships inside of maybe C# code for you. Then you can go ahead and create the C# code and add in a migration and update your database from there. So those two different ways you can work with Entity Framework Core to create your database and the C# code using the ORM tool. So I hope these two videos helped you with Entity Framework Core and how you can leverage it to build your C# classes and your data tables. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Thanks.